for the OMERO iViewer, and let's now draw our attention to the third-party tools, to the analysis tools. Okay, so first of all, I remind you what we have here. So we have a server which is remote here in Dundee, and then we have a local application called Fiji. Okay, I hope that you all know Fiji, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a plugin for Fiji. This is like a software glue which uses the OMERO API, and it runs under Fiji. I sent you an email previously saying that you might be interested in installing Fiji, and if you've done so, that's the moment when you please start your Fiji and work with me on that workflow, which is again described in the OMERO guides and in your workflow. Okay, so first of all, the most primitive but the most important thing is to show you how to do a simple analysis producing regions of interest, measurement results in the form of table and new images, and how can I harvest those three most interesting components and from Fiji and put them back to OMERO. So step one, I get my image out of OMERO into Fiji environment, do my magic with Fiji on it, some analysis producing regions of interest, measurement tables, and new images, and put those things back to OMERO to an appropriate place. How do I do that? So I first of all had to install this glue, this OMERO plugin for Fiji, which is described in the walkthrough how to do that. Let me just allow myself to jump to that walkthrough. So for example, if you go to the OMERO guides and click on the Fiji icon, here is described how to install the OMERO plugin for Fiji. So if you follow this walkthrough, then you will get in your plugins folder of Fiji such a new item called OMERO, and I can click on connect to OMERO. This resembles OMERO Insight, but don't get phased by that. It's basically because we took OMERO Insight, or Jean-Marie took OMERO Insight and wrap it as a plugin for Fiji. Yeah? But we are basically in Fiji. Once more, note it, Fiji is the boss here. Yeah, and I log in again as trainer1 and to the same server. Unsurprisingly, I will see, don't mind the console here. Yeah, that's Fiji is talking to itself. And then I have here the same hierarchy as previously. Obviously, I'm connecting to the same server. And now if I open from the Fiji dataset here, the first image, okay, with double click, then first the bioformats window appears. I say, okay. And now the image is basically fetched from the server into the Fiji in full, okay? This is not the case in the case of iViewer. You maybe saw that the opening of image in iViewer was much faster, and this is because iViewer does not fetch the full image. It fetches only what you need, okay? So in the web browser, when I clicked on the image in OMERO, things were faster because it is using OMERO API, and if it's a 40 plane image, then it would take just the plane you are viewing right now, and all the 39 other planes will stay nicely in the server down the hill at the University of Dundee. Okay, this is not the case for Fiji. It must fetch the whole thing. But for that, once it's done, this image is fully in Fiji. So all the power and magic of Fiji with respect to analysis, which is very superior to OMERO analysis, is capable to be unleashed on this image. And let's just do a small, simple thing. I can, for example, draw a region of interest on this image, something like this, a very funny region of interest, so that you can remember, okay, this is done now. And in Fiji, if I hit T, then I add this newly drawn region of interest into the ROI manager. This is necessary for the next steps of the plugin. And I mean now the OMERO plugin for Fiji, which is running here. This is all in Fiji, yeah, locally on my desktop. Now I can click inside that ROI manager on measure, and this will measure inside Fiji again some parameters out of this region of interest and put them into results table. And I can now harvest the region of interest and the result table and put them back into OMERO. How do I do that? I can go to plugins, OMERO, and say save ROIs to OMERO. I am saving ROIs and measurements, and they are called I2K dash second run because you are the second workshop on I2K on OMERO, and say save. Now it's saying saving, and the goodies will appear here on this image. This means the region of interest and the table, and I can, it says results saved. I can verify it in the OMERO web client. If I go back to where you are hopefully still logged in as well and find the same data set, a Fiji data set, I can click on here. Here is a ROI counter. It says 1 ROI. Great, this looks good. I can open it in iViewer. Yes, this is the region of interest I just drawn in Fiji, and this was now saved in one click into OMERO. That's great. And I can also verify that on the attachments, there is a new attachment called ITK second run.csv. Unsurprisingly, if I click on that, as I say, OMERO will do nothing with that, but it will download to my local hierarchy. I can open it with Microsoft Excel, and voila, this is the line which is coming from Fiji, but this time already saved in OMERO safely for me on the image of from which the analysis was done in the first place. And having done that, I can go on and perform a workflow which would produce a new image. I will close this and I will select an image number 4 in this data set and open it again. Again, it gets fetched from OMERO into my locally run Fiji. And if I've done so, I can draw a rectangle on that image. And because this workflow is intending to demonstrate the capability of creating a new image, I am not now putting the ROI into ROI manager. Instead, I go image crop. This is probably the easiest workflow which produces a new image for me. And this cropped image, by the way, OMERO cannot do crop out of the box, but Fiji can do it for me. Like this. I can go now, and this newly created image I can immediately import to OMERO by saying save images to OMERO. And done so, I can select, let's say, the data set. Yes. Okay. Yes, the AFiji data set. And then I can add to the queue. But the AFiji dataset you can see is the dataset from which the parent of the crop is coming as well. So now if I import it, I will expect that I will have 5 images in the dataset. I add to the queue and click import. Again, you will see the 2 progress bars as we described already. So yes, you can import stuff using Fiji as well. Then I can go back to the OMERO web client, refresh, and indeed, these are my my images. This is the original image from which I made the crop, and this is the crop which is coming from Fiji. So I can again open it in full viewer. Great, my crop is here. So I just shown you how you can easily do in Fiji regions of interest, measurement tables, and new images from an image coming from OMERO and save the results of your analysis in Fiji with one click. Great. So this is now done. And if we want to get a little bit more fancy, then we could go a step further and do something which resembles a little bit more real image analysis, such as if I let's say open again the first image, okay, then it will demonstrate for you in the first place that I can do a two-way trip with the ROIs. So the image will be now open with the region of interest, which is now coming from OMERO, remember? Okay, I drawn this ROI first in Fiji. I exported that ROI into OMERO on the same image. Then I reopened that image again in Fiji, and it has, unsurprisingly, the OMERO region of interest in it. I'm not interested in this region. Nevertheless, I will delete it in Fiji, and I will go ahead and do a workflow which is described in your walkthrough as well here. And this one in Fiji. I'm going through the segment manually OMERO data using Fiji image J. Okay, here is some simple walkthrough where I'm segmenting the centrioles highlighted on this super resolution microscopy image. You can see two of them here in the center of the image, and I simply want to segment and measure the resulting regions of interest, their diameter from Fiji. Okay, so this is my goal with this batch of images. I have 4 of them here in this data set, but they are coming from a bigger bunch of images coming ultimately from the image data resource IDR, where there are 414 of them, and they are connected to a scientific publication. Very good. I can go now and say, type 8-bit, okay. Thinking about which, I actually want to go again and show you how to be more proper. Okay, I could do that, and then let's say trying to remember, and of course there is a lot of trial and error. But in Fiji, if you happen to know, ladies and gentlemen, there is a function called record, macro recorder. Okay, so I can record the steps which I'm doing in Fiji for later peruse for other images, and that's what I will do. So I open the image, I will go to plugins, macro, and record. Okay. Now, if I do my first step, which is image type 8-bit, the step is recorded here in the macro recorder already for me. That's nice. Now I need to threshold the image in Fiji. These are all Fiji steps here, yeah, I'm going through. So if I go to adjust auto threshold, then I will need to leave this white objects on black background, and depends on what version of Fiji you have, whether or not you need that or not, and check the stack here. And I say, okay, you can see it was successfully thresholded. And with this thresholded image, binarized image, I can now go and use the plugin called Analyze Particles within Fiji, such as this. I know that I have to go with 10 to infinity. I have to go pixel units, and I have to leave these 3 boxes checked. By the way, of course, this is a result of a painstaking work on this workflow. As you might imagine, with every image analysis, you want to do something like that, because you have to tailor your workflow according to the images you are working with. And then say, okay, process all 3 images. You say yes, save one measurement which was lingering there in my table. I don't want to save that. There is another very important line added to my macro recorder. And you can see that I have created some interesting regions of interest. In Fiji, they look already much better than the funny region I just drawn by hand. And I have 3-channel image. That's why you can see the slight mismatch, because the ROIs are in all 3 channels. And now I can simply go and save the ROIs in OMERO that manually. That would be nice, but ultimately not that interesting, because you already saw how to save ROIs in OMERO into OMERO manually. What if I want to go a step further and do the batch analysis, which I was preparing my guns for here with the recorder? So I can now go and let's say create the macro which I was intending in the first place, by saying create in Fiji, and then file, and save as, and it suggests that the macro, that should be called macro IJM, and it will save it on my local MAC, because that's where I am with my Fiji. So I will say that this is I2K second run Fiji macro, and I will save it to my home folder. Okay, that's great. So this is my recipe. These are the steps which I would like to repeat on 414 other images in Fiji. Um, but the images are of course in OMERO, yeah. And I want to do that in an illustrious manner, so we will use script for that. How can you do that? Well, you have here if you go to your OMERO guides, you have here another workflow which is called segment OMERO data using the scripting editor in Fiji. And if you click on that, then you can see that there is a script here straight in the resources. You will of course like to read the whole thing through, but just for the sake of sparing time, I can simply click on this and it downloads a script for me directly. I can save the file, and if I save the file, I can open it locally in my text editor like this, and now I can study the script. So the script is basically a Groovy script. Groovy is something like Java. Jean-Marie helpfully wrote that script, and that's why we can offer it for the participants of our courses. And you can simply do what I'm suggesting here on your side. The script will connect to OMERO and start fetching the images and create the regions of interest on those images and the results tables resulting from measurement of those regions of interest, also in Fiji. And going through this, it will save the appropriate regions of interest to the appropriate images. Okay, so if you simply go grab that script and run it in Fiji like so, that you go to Fiji and open new file, new hey, sorry, of course you really have to be in Fiji. File, new script, then a script editor will open, and I can, let's say, go and copy the whole script and paste it into the Fiji scripting editor, and then select a language saying Groovy and then run the script. Okay, but I will not do that because I have something better for you. If you let's say go to the third chapter here, segment OMERO data using Fiji run headlessly in the notebook. If you can click on the on this link in the step 6 of that walkthrough, then Binder will start and some magic will happen. So let me talk you through that whilst the binder is building. Okay. What is happening here? If I select the script
That could
and
take some time if it's building.
yeah, last time we were quite lucky. That's all right, but you will forgive me if it's not built in completion. Main thing is that you understand what's going on here. So the script, okay. I have basically this script, which I just downloaded in 2 different environments. Okay, the first environment, which I was suggesting here and showed you, is the environment of the Fiji scripting dialog. But this is still running locally on my machine, and it's completely dependent on the vagaries of my local Fiji. What version of local Fiji do I have, which is sometimes upgraded, etc. And it will be fetching the images from the server in the university one by one, and then running the analysis on them, and then basically saving the regions of interest back onto those images, and just there is kind of a long wait which is caused by the fact that I'm locally here on my broadband in a private flat in Dundee. Okay, whereas if I create an environment somewhere else on the cloud, then at least I will I will bypass the broadband connection, which is sometimes not that great, and I can run my Fiji on the cloud, which is just happening here for you, and then fetch the images from the server which is remote to a place which is remote. Now I can go one step further, which we plan to do in the future, and have the cloud place simply closer to my server, something like having it on the cluster or something, and have the analysis run close to the data where the data sits, so that the transfer of the data between those two places is not so long. Okay. So in the meantime, we can have a look at the script. How is it laid out? So I just described to you that it's creating tables and results with results, and also new regions of interest. And you can see here that the bit which I was going through and which is recorded in the macro here in Fiji, which goes something like
yeah, the key part there is always the same logic. You first need to connect to OMERO. You retrieve the data, in that case, open image. No, stay where you were, Peter. Go down. No, you were at the core. I think going through the no, what you were showing just stick there. The logic is the same. You connect to OMERO via the API, you load an image or a collection of images, a data set. In that case, if you're not familiar with Groovy, it looks maybe a strange thing, but it will iterate through the images, open the images that you want, and in that example, you load all the images, the entire 5D object. And if you are interested in only loading a given plane, sorry, my video is off, as Peter was indicating, when you have when you were viewing an image in the web, we're loading one plane at a time. You can also do that if you want to only analyze a plane or a given channel. You can do that. We have plenty of example of that. And after that, you apply the macro. Here, you run line by line the macro. But if you have already the macro as a file on disk or an attachment, you can just say run macro, and then you will apply the macro to the image. What you do in the notebook that Peter wanted to show is something a bit more user-friendly than that, if you're not familiar with the scripting facility. And after that, when you have all the result from Fiji, the other key part is to upload the other result. Can you stay where you were, Peter? Yeah, then you save the ROI. You convert each time when you have in an application, whatever that application is, you need to convert the ROI from, in that case, Fiji into OMERO, and then we save them back. Each language has its own, there is no common ROI language. We're trying to work on that but we do the same with other software, like Peter can show the QPass or other third-party tool. They need to be converted into the original form and put them into, just stay on that page, and then we move and associate it. Then after that, we upload the results. So if you are familiar with scripting, or somebody in your institution that is familiar with scripting, we have plenty of this example. And after that, you can slot the macro you are interested in. If you're not interested in thresholding, but in another Fiji plugin, this is basically the only section that Peter has highlighted that need to change. If you want to save, you may not save ROI, but if that plugin generates an image, you can also import that image into OMERO. We have offer quite a lot of flexibility there. thing is, if you're not familiar with with, I don't know if any of you do some scripting, but if not, you might have somebody in your institution, and all those scripts are in the guide. All those examples are in the so if we go to, let me put you a link, the so I put a link in the chat. This is the entry page, but on that entry page where you see the Fiji icon, if you click on the Fiji icon, the various icon are the various tool we have already integrated with, like Fiji, Elasticsearch Profiler, TrackMate, and other. And if you click on Fiji, it's detail of how to run all the script and how to write, and most importantly, you will have access to in the repository. There's a lot of, in that repository, there's the next link, there's a collection of script that you will find how to access the data, basically, how to use the API. There are several examples of that, how to crop an image, how to do local import, how to do background subtraction, and so on and so forth. Yeah, those are just a collection of examples, and I think you can take it from there in order to adjust it to your need. But when key part there, when you do the analysis, is the analysis is done on the client's machine that is on your laptop or where Fiji is running. So the data need to be transferred from the server to your local machine and sent back. You could argue, okay, it would have been quicker to have only the machine, the data directly on the machine. That's true. But the advantage of using OMERO is then you can also control, you know where the data are, you have the data accessible for further use, and we'll show you something, another tool afterwards, where you can actually use the tool elsewhere. And another advantage, and we have colleagues in Dundee that work that way, is they do analysis in one software. In that case, they were doing the analysis in Python, doing some tracking in Python. They save the result into OMERO, do the attachment, and do further analysis in R, but at least they have a better control of where the data, where the analytical result end up.
Back to this tab, where already my my Fiji is built, so I can now show what I was building for so long in Fiji, pardon me, in my binder on the cloud. I just started a small machine where there is Fiji wrapped with that. And once I did it, you saw it took a small while, but after that I have for free, if I start this desktop,
So yeah, I think it's a nice way if you, when you publish data, you know, sometimes people say, I analyze my data with X, Y, and Z, and it's very hard for someone to be able to reproduce that analysis or even to set up the same environment. And I think that is you're not going to do in terms of the in public cloud-based structure like Binder. We on the side project we are starting hosting our own system ourselves to offer more resources for that. But it allowed you to show what can be done against your data. Let's say you publish when you put your data, they don't have necessarily to be in OMERO. In that case, they were in OMERO, but they could be available in Zenodo or somewhere else where you have put them public. Obviously, some of the code will be slightly different, but the gist is there. You can then offer in a notebook there, you put them into a GitHub repository, because what happened here is one of the the last link, OMERO guide Fiji, you copy that link into my binder, that what Peter did, and it generates an environment for you where you can then run, in that case, Fiji, and run some macro connecting to your OMERO, to the OMERO server. So the analysis is done elsewhere, but it's, I would say, it's not heavy analysis. It's more a showcase of element what you want to do, or small analysis in that case.
Yeah, so let's just do it quickly. I started a desktop, so I could have done everything actually in this environment. I didn't have to have the local Fiji here. I could have prepared the full workflow here. That's fine. Now I have also the Jupyter notebook, and the Fiji will be run headlessly inside that Docker where this Jupyter environment is there as well. It's a convenient environment for executing code, so you don't have to get too worried. I'm just clicking through those cells using the run. First, there are some class paths to be imported, and once that's done, I will connect from this notebook to the OMERO server. Obviously, is the glue script here, which is connecting and ultimately the Fiji running headlessly with the OMERO server. And for that, I have to log in. I log in as train1, and okay, I do not rerun the cell. Then I connect to OMERO in the next cell. It says connecting, and I made a typo. Of course. Okay, let's try again. Yes, now it was successful, and I select the image. Okay. So the image ID, which I will run on, I will take it from OMERO, and this will be one of the Fiji data sets. Here I will use, let's say, this one. The ID is here. Okay, I'll copy it. It has 0 regions of interest at the moment on it. So I will paste the image ID here into the cell, just remove the, okay, then collect the parameters. Basically, it's looking for, yeah, it's looking for an attachment on that image, and I see that I just made a mistake. I, of course, can't use that image. I will use the image where there are some attachment on it, and the attachment which I'm looking for is the attachment which I kind of mockingly created for you. So I would attach it from my local hierarchy. In a previous run, I created the I2K second run IJM macro, and I would attach it to that image by clicking on this one. This would be basically the saving of my recipe from Fiji, so that I can run my analysis on the images now in industrious manner, as we will do right now. But this freshly created I2K second run IJM will not work out of the box with the headlessly run Fiji. We had to a little bit adjust the macro, and the Fiji macro segment 1 is the one I will be using on that image. Okay, so I have the image ID again to grab and copy and paste it into the cell of the notebook, and rerun the cell with the image ID. Yeah, just do that. Okay. Okay. Good. Collect parameters. Yes. Then I retrieve the macro files linked to that image. And I will select the macro to use. You can see that I was successful. Now in this way, actually, this script is, by the virtue of connecting via API to OMERO, is able to retrieve the attachments which you just saw in the web client. And I'm selecting the Fiji macro segment 1. That's great. and then I load the selected macro, loading macro, and it saved it in this environment, loaded it and saved it. And then I will run the macro on images which are being fetched with a logic very similar to the script I was showing to you here in my local environment. It's fetching the images, opening it, running the macro on it, meaning images is just one image in this case. But of course, I could very easily loop in this script, even writing into this Jupyter cell and loop over all the images in that data set, or let's say over all the images in the 10 data set in the whole project, which was 414 images. And then I can see that the analysis was successful. I have some results tables, okay, which I will save in the next step of this script, which Jean-Marie wrote, and I can select the output to save. So I select, say, image, ROIs, and results, all three. That's great. Then I collect the parameters. Which is basically collecting the results of my choices here from the previous cell, obviously, and then I save the ROIs back to the server. Great, so this was successfully done, and save the measurements associated with that analysis here in this environment in the Fiji, which was run headlessly. And it says saving results as a CSV, true, which looks great. So I saved the CSV in this step, and then I will save the image as well, importing, okay. So this looks like it's still importing.
You were generating with that?
Processing done, okay. Yeah, so that's fine. That's the new image is imported as well. And I have the ID of the image as well. And the good practice is to close the connection so that I don't tax the resources of the server unnecessarily. And the whole thing was done, and you see how easy it was to analyze an image. And I could have done, of course, in a loop on 414. I didn't have to change a thing, and I have a security that everything will work every time I come to it. And as Jean-Marie highlighted, if some other scientists will come to that, I will be able to, he will be able to reanalyze in the very same environment. I'm just searching for that new image which I just imported. So it's right here in a new data set called Analysis from Fiji. Okay, this is the new image which I just created in the Fiji Run Headlessly notebook, which I was demonstrating right here. And you can see it here in OMERO now. And yes, this is obviously the thresholded segmented image. But more importantly, on the AFiji dataset, on the Fiji, on the image, which is the first in the dataset, I have new regions of interest. This is the old region of interest. I will just delete it for now, which is coming from my manual demonstration. But on top of that, I have here much nicer regions of interest, which I'm just highlighting here, which are coming from the serious segmentation, which was done by the Fiji Run in the notebook headlessly. Okay, and the table with the values is attached as well. And this is this one here called 9539 results CSV. 9539 is the ID of the image, and I can open it like this. And I have here some values coming from the Fiji Run headlessly. Of course, there could be many more values, but I just Jean-Marie just set up the Fiji with those values. Very good. If there are no questions,